Have you ever thought about how weird it is that certain things are sold for money? Because sometimes those things that end up being sold for money actually become corrupted because of that. Or at least it makes things very confusing. For example, if you were to be doing some kind of spiritual practice or some type of thing that's related to philosophy, but you're paying really high amounts of money for that kind of service. What happens is these people can become confused in your mind. Are they doing it because they want the money as an end? Or are they doing it because they care about your development? Because that's a fundamental reason a lot of cults become popular and begin in the first place is because those leaders of a cult use some type of philosophical or spiritual orientation and desire in people to build up their own egos and to get money from those people while thinking that they're being benevolent while doing so. It's at least a sticky kind of problem because in the mind of someone in a spiritual practice that's requiring them to pay a lot of money to participate, it's just going to come up at some point if you're thinking deeply. And why would you trust someone or believe that they really care about you when they have such a high price tag and thing to gain from you being a part of the practice in the first place? The thing about having no money involved is that at least you know that the people are there because they value sharing something and they're not getting any other ulterior incentive that could corrupt their practice or what they're trying to teach you. And based on those kinds of foundations, people can really develop trust in their teachers and in their mentors. And there's also a strange aspect of this phenomena in another way, which is for the practitioners themselves. Usually they belong to some type of institution or practice that's not run by them. They're a cog in the wheel or a cog in the machine. And they can actually become trapped in the practice because their economic well-being is tied to believing and doing certain things. For example, what if you met like a priest or a rabbi or some type of Buddhist monk who realizes, maybe this isn't true. Maybe what I was led to believe when I was a student and have become attached to through practice and becoming a leader has actually led me down the wrong path. At that point, you have like a mortgage, you have tons of responsibilities that are based on your income, which are dependent on you, at least, they're at least dependent on you believing that you should be doing this or deluding yourself and just acting like it's the right thing to do because you need the paycheck. Because the second you decide, I don't really want to be a rabbi anymore, you're giving that up. Or you stay with it, but your heart's not really there. And your money's going to disappear if you decided to give that kind of thing up. The same thing is actually true for any profession because when you get these college degrees, let's say you're a PhD in theology or a PhD in economics or a particular type of economics, and your reputation's around a certain theory of economics, or your reputation is around a certain theory of psychology as a professional. You've went to school for 20 years or something. I'm exaggerating, but to be a Jungian therapist, and out of nowhere you're like have this realization in a dream. Maybe Young wasn't right, but you're making all this money acting out of his ideology or out of a certain economic ideology or religious ideology. Then you're trapped in a role. You're trapped pretending, or you give it all up. And sometimes that means you're at square one. That means you're like working at the Starbucks because no one else is going to hire a theology major or PhD. Or the Jungian therapy isn't really going to be as useful in a clinic, so you're starting at square one. Uh, you get my point, though, is that to renounce something that you find not being true after years of committing to a certain type of practice can have some barriers. And because of that, the money actually leads to people doing things that are a lie and pretending to believe in things and not questioning what they actually think is true, even if they're like supposed to be doing that for their job.